Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I'm your host, Perry. With me, as he always is Jedi Master himself, Eric, the Whiskey Mutant Smith.
May the 4th be with you.
Happy May the 4th, everybody. Star Wars Day.
Mr. Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, no. Who let this guy in? I can't
Find
believe
your lack of faith disturbing.
In Jar Jar Binks, you should.
Huh? Annie?
Have you ever seen the thing
You
as
have
like
failed me for the last time.
like Jar Jar Binks ruined the galaxy like twice?
Yeah. Dude should have been cut in half like friggin' first movie.
Yeah. No kidding.
Sorry, Jar Jar.
No! Oh, no!
We're just going to do Jar Jar impressions this entire episode. Which
Remember,
sounds miserable.
Remember when the big thing was like, Jar Jar's going to be...
he's going to be a Sith Lord.
The Sith Lord.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the dumbest thing ever.
I mean, but he was genuinely awful for the galaxy.
Oh, yeah. He
So-
made horrible decisions.
Yeah. And some idiot decided that he should be a senator.
Very, very... That's a mistake.
Or a genius.
Oh,
Who's to say?
who's to say?
All I'm saying is the Empire did nothing wrong. That's not true. They killed millions of people.
At least they didn't kill... Yeah, they did kill pretty much everybody. And kids.
And women.
And all of them.
They killed them all! Butchered that line so bad. That was really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is Wednesday. It's another 10 Bip. It's May the 4th. Happy May the 4th. Go watch a Star War. And
Be a Star War.
But after you listen to this podcast, though, then you can go watch a Star War. Because this week, we got a really good episode. We're going to talk about some new TTB labels. We're going to be talking about this expansion that's coming from Heaven Hill, which is going to be crazy sauce, I would say. That's the official term for it as well.
Code crazy sauce.
Hashtag crazy sauce, y'all. What are we doing?
Crazy
we
sauce,
doing here?
man.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
crazy.
And we've also got a really fun interview with the Cocktail Contessa. So you guys are going to enjoy that. Before that, though, you can find us on all social media channels at My Bourbon Pod and at Whiskey Mutant. You can support us and everything that we do at patreon.com/MyBourbonPodcast for as little as $1 a month. $5 a month gets you bonus content. I've started this thing where if I get a phone call during our bonus content, I answer it on air.
Just go for it.
We just go for it because I'm friggin' tired of spam calls. I can't take it anymore.
If they call you back after that last one, I mean, they got perseverance.
I mean, I didn't say anything like to hurt their feelings.
No, but I was in the background making noises.
It's true. And also, because we didn't mention this up top last week, or at least I don't think we did, our live show, end of this month. We are just a few short weeks away from the This Is My Bourbon Podcast meetup weekend.
Yep.
Timbua.
We just had a meeting at the hotel last week.
We did.
Got some stuff squared away, and we got to figure out the couple of food items.
Yes.
There, I got the menu sitting right over here.
Yeah. So we've got, as of recording, one ticket left for the all-in package.
Who's going to get it?
I'm not sure. But if you want to bring a spouse, we can probably bump it up to like 2 more.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
We'll figure it out. But plenty of general admission tickets left as well. But they are going fast, so do not sleep on that. You can
do not.
come. There is no try. You get to come hang out with us. We're going to be chatting with Jason from the Mash and Drum, Chad from My Daily Bourbon, and as I revealed on last week's live stream, that's what that was. Which the audio you can listen to right here in the podcast feed. Should be up right now. I'm a little behind, but I'm going to get both of those up from the past 2 weeks very quickly after we're done recording. We are recording this on Tuesday as well.
That's how we roll, baby.
It's been a crazy few weeks. But our good friends David and Kira from whiskeychannel.com over on YouTube are going to be joining us for the weekend as well. And they're going to be participating in the live show with some... We're not going to reveal exactly what it is just yet, but it's something else. I'll say that. They're going to be contributing to some of our tastings, and overall, they're just going to create some very much needed and oft beloved chaos to the mix of everything. So don't miss it.
Don't
miss it.
Stop. Get a ticket.
The links for the tickets are in the description below, as is the link for the hotel.
And it's also in the my bourbon on
at my bourbon pod.
At my bourbon pod on the description on the Instagram.
And but it's all in Lexington. I don't think we've mentioned that enough. Yeah, and you get to hang out with us.
Lexington.
Have some fun.
Do you hate when people say Lex Vegas?
Oh, I hate it. I think
So
it's the
stupid,
worst.
right?
Ugh, disgusts me. Nash Vegas though,
Nash Vegas.
totally fine.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
That one makes perfect sense. It's just because Lexington doesn't have that reputation. I think of whatever.
We're about to make it have that rep.
Boy, howdy.
Boy, oh boy.
Oh man. What are we doing? What are we starting with this week?
A gift that I forgot to give you.
Okay.
Because I brought you back something from Disney.
Aw.
I did.
Dude.
So you can open it. You can leave it as it is, but it's just a cool little souvenir because I think it's one of the coolest things. So
I wasn't expecting a present.
this is, if you go to, they may sell them in some other spots, but if you go to Galaxy's Edge and you get a Diet Coke, they put it in one of the little bombs.
No friggin' way.
The little thermal detonators and stuff. You call
Holy
them.
crap, that's so cool.
So I brought you back one of those.
Dang, man, thank you. How did you get this on the plane?
Honestly, when they first did that, and we were down there close to when it opened, I looked it up, and people were getting stopped in security because of those, bringing them
crazy.
back. But now Orlando, since pretty much everybody's flying out of Orlando, they know what they are now.
Yeah.
Just like flying with a lightsaber.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is a thermal detonator.
Yeah.
A what? What?
Get down! It's so
What
cool
do you
though.
have? A knife? No!
They have Diet Coke, they have regular Coke, and they have Sprite, and they all are like the colors, but they're shaped like that.
The Diet Coke one looks the coolest.
Yeah.
I would say. It also looks the most like the actual thermal detonator.
Right. The other one, the
thank you
Sprite
so
is green.
much.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So there you go.
I guess I'm having because I want to I don't know. Is it more worth it to leave the liquid in there?
I mean, I don't.
Because I think it's a really cool, just a prop to kind of have around.
Yeah, I mean, you could drink it, put the lid back on, and it would just be empty. You could do whatever. I mean, it's not like they're going away. Like, we can always get more.
True.
So whatever you want to do.
Eventually I'll get to Galaxy's Edge as well.
Yeah.
But thanks, man.
Yeah, man.
I love it. Oh,
There you
I'm
go.
all warm and fuzzy.
It's Star Wars
All
Day.
right, what you been drinking? I'm just kidding. Yeah, we got Flying Blind this week. Is that what you said we're
I
doing?
brought something over.
Sweet. I've done Flying Blind for the past few weeks, I think, and so.
You did Flying Blind and Sips and Snacks and everything.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did do that Sips and Snacks. Man, it's been a long few weeks. I feel like.
Here, it's wrote on this side.
Here, just.
I'll pour it for you. We're going to finish this sample together. I've been holding on to it for a little bit.
Oh. Nothing but warm and fuzzies on Tim Bip today.
That's what we do, man. Love you.
Love you too, buddy.
All right.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
That's
It smells
just-
just
that's
as good
just
as the last time I had it. Oh, my God.
That's a frosted cinnamon roll through and through.
I mean, it's cinnamon roll, and it's just got like this extra like buttercream icing on it.
Yeah,
like,
a little bit of baking spices too.
Like you could smell that all day.
I want a candle made out of this nose.
That's exactly right.
Whoa. It's not as spicy as I was expecting it to be.
It's very French toasty.
I feel like I'm leaning towards it being a wheated bourbon. No?
No.
Yeah, all right. Is it lower rye?
I don't know the exact mash bill.
We'll confirm in them.
Yeah, you'll probably know.
Yeah. It also kind of goes a little bit like Heaven Hilly.
It reminds me, it's got a lot of like, it's more maple heavy.
Yeah,
than, like,
for sure.
Bacon spices.
Yeah.
And it's almost got like this, almost like a like a chocolate sundae when the vanilla and the chocolate have kind of mixed. Oh, it's so good.
I like it.
You know what it is? You want to take a guess?
My brain is not working enough to do Matt Madness right now, so I'm gonna just go ahead and say what are we drinking here?
This is a single barrel from Boone County.
Really?
This was the sample that Chad from It's Bourbon Night gave me
Oh, snap.
of the Boone County 1833 12-year gift shop only.
Dang.
This is the one he put in the bourbon bowl. And
Yeah.
this was like the deciding vote when I had to pick between the tiebreaker, and I picked this one.
It's kind of higher
It's
proof,
like
isn't it?
It's 113-ish, 114-ish because I put it up against Russell's 13.
That's right.
Sarah,
Yeah.
Sarah had Russell's 13 and Chad had this, and so that was the round that they went against each other. And it was a single barrel. They were both kind of the same age, same proof, and all that.
It's really good.
It's super good.
Really good. It's so drinkable too.
So
I mean, I could easily kill about half that bottle.
So it's MGP, obviously, but I don't know if it's like which MGP.
I don't know off the top of my head either. I'm leaning towards it's probably like 13, the 13% right mash bill that they use. But I don't know. I could be horribly wrong, especially since I first said, "Oh, I think this is a wheated bourbon."
I mean, it's so sweet though, right?
Yeah. But regardless, it's good, man.
Oh, it's so good.
I got something I'll have you drink as well while we're doing news and everything, but Star Wars related.
75% corn, 21% rye, 4% malted barley.
I would have gotten a couple points, I think.
Yeah. Either way, freaking great.
Yeah, I like for sure. What have you been drinking recently, though?
Man, I'm on like a cocktail kick.
It's perfect for this episode then with the Cocktail Contessa.
We took the kids to Bernheim Forest over the weekend to see the wooden giants, which was pretty cool. And after that, we went over to have dinner or kind of lunch dinner at Jim Beam at the kitchen table.
How was it?
Dude, like, let me tell you, I'm putting that at the top of recommendations. That place, food-wise...
It's an early tips and bits?
Early tips and bits. Jim Beam, the food there is on par with Bardstown Bourbon Company, Willett, all that. Like, it's outstanding. And I mean that. Like, I had all 5 kids... Not 5 kids. I had all 5 of us. Wait a second. I only have 3 kids.
Is April pregnant with twins somehow?
No, me. It was all 5 of us. Me and April and the 3 kids, and we all got something different. So I was trying a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Like, I had like it was a brisket sandwich, but it was like they had au jus sauce with it, so it was like a brisket sandwich dip. April had Bardu. Is that Bargu? Is that how you say it?
Burgoo?
Burgoo.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so good. Dash had a pizza. They make pizzas there. Eli had fried chicken that had honey that you drizzled over it. And Addison had pulled pork sliders. And everything on the menu was just great. Everything I had.
Nice.
But I had 2 cocktails there. I had a old fashioned, which was great. And then I had this thing called a strawberry paper airplane. And it was Old Overholt rye infused with strawberries and some other stuff in it. It was freaking amazing.
That sounds awesome.
But they also have a ton of other cocktails. They do have a Knob Creek single barrel that's there, picked by the kitchen, I guess you would say you can buy. I didn't get it. I'd spent way too much money on food and cocktails. But if you're there, if you go to the gift shop down at Jim Beam, they just have the normal stuff down there.
Yeah.
But
Which is so weird to me.
I know.
Because they used to have Knob Creek single barrels there all the time. And you go and they're signed by like Fred and Freddie and everything.
Dude, it's the nicest gift shop ever. And then you go in, there's not like a special like bottle that's like gift shop only. I guess the old tub, like the little.
Yeah, but you can get that at Justin's now
Yeah, I
too.
know.
Like there's I don't know. And I think that I've been exposed to this more recently. Not that I wasn't before, but just it's in the forefront of my mind because I've been doing so many tours recently. And the main complaint that I hear is that we go to these gift shops and they don't have anything that's exclusive just to the gift shop. Yeah. And I totally understand. Like, it used to be very, very common for you to go to particular distilleries and their gift shops would have something that you couldn't get anywhere else. I mean, heck, Heaven Hill doesn't have the Elijah Craig Barrel Select grenades
I know.
like they used to. I mean, it's hit or miss now.
Yeah.
Whether or not they have it. And the past few times that I've been up there, it's they haven't had any.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
So
it's insane to me.
If you're at Jim Beam and you don't have a lot of time to eat, walk up to the kitchen, and you can buy a single barrel rye or a single barrel bourbon of Knob Creek up there.
But like the actual bottle.
The bottle. Yeah, full bottle.
Well, I guess that counts enough towards being
but
like
it
gift shop adjacent.
Yeah, but it says the kitchen table or whatever on the labels. It's not like Jim Beam gift.
I kind of wish
shop
you told me because I totally would have
I didn't
sent you money for it.
I should have said something.
No, that's all right.
They have plenty.
I'm sure I'm going to be over that way before too long.
But
I'll tell you when I'll do it.
Cocktails and food at the kitchen are some of the best stuff I've had.
I'll tell you when I'll stop by is when I'm on my way back from Nashville towards the end of the month.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I've got I've got a 2-day tour with a group that ends with me dropping them off at the airport in Nashville.
It's such a long.
It's a long drive, but the upside of it though is that I'm going to be staying down in Franklin, and I'm going to go and see Will and Grease, and I'll probably stop in at Elixir as well so I can see Tarek.
Yeah,
but it's gonna be a really, really long couple of days. And this week I'm doing 3 days with the same group, and it ends with me taking them to and from the Derby. So, happy Derby week as well, everybody.
Oh, yeah. Star Wars Derby.
Jeez, it's just there's a lot of stuff going on. I'll talk about something that I've been drinking recently that I kind of haven't been able to get my mind off of.
Oh.
But we had it not too long ago on the show, but I just look. I am so enamored with them right now, but EJ Curly, dude, to go from a brand that I didn't know existed to like, I'm ready to pick up multiples of their product. I am so in on what they're doing. And I did a live stream about their stuff a couple weeks ago as well. And they reached out and they're like, you need to really need to try our small batch as well, because it's a source single barrel.
Yeah.
But if it's what we kind of think it might be, it could be one of the sleepers on the market.
Yeah, I need to grab that small batch.
Are you going to stop by Ernie's on your way home?
If not, I'll be there. I can stop on my way from work in the morning.
Because if they still... Did they have the small batch and the single barrel yesterday? Mm-hmm. Can you grab me one of each? Mm-hmm. Please? Or I'll just go over there today and get them because I want them that bad.
Yeah.
I'll let you know what happens.
Yeah, let me know. If not, we'll do it in the morning.
See what kind of mood Eden's in after I pick her up from daycare. But here's something else that this is a what am I gonna drink? And this is gonna get cracked for this my bourbon weekend as well. Did you see our little back and forth with Swan last night?
I fell asleep and I got behind on the chat.
So Swan is up in Michigan right now. And as one does, when you're a bourbon fan like we are, he went and did a little hunting. And he stopped in at a store called the Ann Arbor Party Center.
Okay.
And he found a Knob Creek single barrel.
Oh, that's an old label.
It's not just the old label. It's from the second year that they ever did single barrels. So on the back is a date code, which you can't see from over there.
No.
It says 2011. So, again, second year that they were doing single barrels for Knob Creek at Jim Beam, which also means...
That means what year was that distilled?
2002, which is 2 years before Booker No passed away, which means that it's got Booker bourbon in it.
Booker juice in it.
So we're going to... I want to save some because it also came out the year that I graduated from high school. And I want to save some of that bottle, hold on to it, hold it back. But we are definitely cracking it at the meetup.
Nice.
At the end of the month.
I like
so,
that. That's crazy. So that was just sitting there?
Yeah. There were a couple. I got one.
You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Sorry.
That's okay. It just sounded like the guy who's never heard that song trying to sing it. But yeah, there were two. I got one, and Fred Gilbert got one.
Thanks,
So.
man. Appreciate you thinking
Yeah.
about me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah. You'll still get to try it. It's ours.
I'm just playing.
Okay. Well, let's get into some news, shall we?
Tell me about it.
Heaven Hill is building a second distillery in Bardstown. A pretty daggone big one,
A big
too.
one. A big one.
$135 million worth of distillery located on a 61-acre site. And they're going to begin at 10 million proof gallons, annually, which is 150,000 barrels per year.
Dang.
And they're aiming to go for 450,000.
That's like 20 more screw top bottled and bonds coming out soon, right?
This is new distillery bottled in bond
Out of Bardstown, Kentucky.
out of Heaven Hill.
Heaven Hill. That's crazy though.
I'm pretty impressed with this, and I mean I'm excited for it. But here's the thing: we were talking about it in our group chat, and the point came up that Heaven Hill doesn't exactly have the best track record over the past couple of years. So is this just more of an excuse for them to treat more employees badly, or should we look at this just from a purely
more
positive
opportunities for people to have jobs? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess we always want to look at the bright side of things. You know?
I'm trying to.
Yeah. You can
Oh,
try.
I forgot one thing I was drinking. Sorry, I hate to backtrack a little bit, but Josh from Tell Me I'm Wrong's wedding was this past Saturday.
You drink Mick Ultra or something.
I did have a Mick Ultra because I'm watching my figure, which is why my back hurts right now. But I also they had a Kentucky Mule as well as one of their signature cocktails.
Oh.
And it was delicious. And I actually tried. So I went to the bartender and I was like, "Can I just get the bourbon neat?" I was like, "Oh, I'm an idiot," but it was old Bardstown bottled and bond from Willett.
Oh yeah.
I hadn't had that neat in so long.
It's so good.
It's really, really good.
It is.
I was so surprised by it. But anyway.
I'd highly recommend that bottle. I love it.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Back to stuff.
Yeah,
we want to look at the the positives of this and everything. But I mean, overall, it's I don't know. Time will tell.
Time will tell.
That being said, very excited. Always want to see more bourbon from one of our favorite distilleries.
Yes.
Of course. I think that we're going to be getting to this in just a little bit, but just in case... Oh, no, we're not. So we're going to talk about this separate from our releases that are coming out. But New Riff has a new take on their malted rye whiskey.
Oh, I saw this.
Coming out.
I saw this.
Finished in Spanish sherry casks. I'm really, really excited about this. I really like sherry finishing. It's 100% malted rye that was distilled in 2014, which means that this is stuff that's getting close to 7,
8.
almost 8. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Say how long it was finished for?
Let's see. 12 Oloroso and 3 Jimenez casks were filled with whiskey and aged another year. No, wait, hold on. Let me back up. New Riff's first batches of 100% malted rye whiskey were distilled in 2014, and the initial release landed in May 2021. For this sherry-finished elaboration, I don't feel like elaboration was the right word there. New Riff imported custom-made 53-gallon Spanish sherry casks and filled them with 5-year-old New Riff malted rye whiskey. 12 Oloroso and 3 Pedro Jimenez casks were filled with whiskey and aged another year before being vatted in the fall of 2021 and left to marry and condition together for several months, following months, until they were bottled in spring of 22.
Age 6 years.
Essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have to go with the 5-year-old age statement. Just because, like, that's when it's stopped being called straight rye whiskey.
Right.
But regardless,
essentially it was
it's
in
about
barrels
6 years
for
old.
6 years.
Yeah. And it's going to be bottled at 112.7 proof.
Oh, that's almost at your proof point.
Well, that's really just for the bourbon with me.
Oh.
I don't know. Sorry.
No.
I don't know much about like their rye at that higher proof. I feel like I've only had lower proof single barrels, and then of course their bottle and bond rye whiskey. But this is going to be released at $65 a bottle. And I think we need to get some.
I'm on the club, so I'll probably get one.
Well,
for us.
we are also good friends with the folks over at their PR team.
Oh.
So,
Oh.
so
Oh.
moving on. Let's talk about some releases.
Let's do it.
There is a new blackened whiskey.
What's this one? Is this one finished in something else?
It's a straight rye.
Oh.
It's called Blackened Rye the Lightning.
The lightning.
90 proof, non-age stated, $70 a bottle. Should be out right now in a limited capacity. Their latest limited edition whiskey features ryes aged for 5 to 8 years, which are finished in Madeira wine and Caribbean rum casks for 2 to 14 weeks.
Does it say where it's sourced from?
Kentucky.
Where if it's Willet?
If it's not Willet, I would say it's probably Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Yeah.
Because there's actually a lot of newer sourced products, sourced at least 95.5 ryes that are Kentucky ryes, but they're from Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Did it say 6 to 8 years, though?
5 to 8.
5 to 8. Do they have that old at Bardstown?
I want to say yes. Not, maybe it is Willet then.
Could be.
That makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to go with saying it's Willet.
We'll find out.
Don't tell me I'm wrong. I refuse. I will not listen to you.
I won't listen.
Let's see. Stranahan's has a new American single malt coming out from Colorado.
Colorado.
It's an extra añejo tequila cask finish. I mean, I want to try it. 90 proof, $70. Available next month at the distillery.
I need to try something tequila finish because
Tequila.
I don't know, something. I like the tequila finished in the bourbon barrels, but I don't think I've had tequila. I mean, bourbon finished in tequila.
Yeah. You want something else real quick while
Yeah.
we're finishing up the TTB labels? This is from our friends over at High Acres and Redding Liquors. It's a Rebel Cask pick.
Oh, it's got Rogue One on it.
It's got Rogue One on the back. I figured it was appropriate for Star Wars Day.
And I like that they didn't try to call it something. They were just like Rebel Barrel Pick.
Yep.
Like, that's it, boys.
All right, TTB labels. We got a gold label, Barrel Craft Spirits Seagrass.
What's this, the $900 one?
I guess so. Woohoo! 20-year-old. 20-year-old rye whiskey. It says on the back, this limited edition 20-year-old blend features our oldest, rarest stocks of meticulously sourced Canadian rye whiskeys. This exceptional whiskey was bottled at cask strength, so you can experience its true texture and flavor. And it looks like it's going to be 128.12 proof.
Ooh.
So I am down for that. We're going to have to, of course, get some samples of that from the folks over
At Joe. Old
Barrel.
Joe.
Old Joe.
I see the 16-year one sitting right in front of me.
I do like that one. Mm-hmm. Let's lump a couple together, shall we?
Lump them.
Lump.
Lump. Ooh, lump.
I didn't like the way that sounded like a command.
Lump them.
We got a few Jeez. We've got a few releases from Rabbit Hole on the horizon. One is a single barrel cask strength bourbon finished in PX sherry casks. It's going to be bottled at 105 proof. It doesn't look like there's an age statement on it, but it is straight bourbon. So, and it looks like it's going to maintain the Alice in Wonderland thing. This one's called the Caterpillar.
Man, I was hoping they would take our Ninja Turtle and Avengers idea and run with it. So
I would love that. I am going to have a tough time pronouncing this one, but it's a double barrel Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey finished in... Wait, is it double barrel? No, okay, so it's finished. It's finished in cognac casks, but it's listed as double barrel. I don't know if that... Is that the same thing? I don't know.
I mean, if you take it out of the bourbon and put it in the finishing, then it's technically double barrel.
I guess you're right. Jeez Louise.
There's a lot of stuff on this table. And there's one less thing on the table now.
Probably for the best. Golly, man.
And there goes another one.
I don't think it broke. I think it just fell. Whatever. It's called...
Whatever. I don't care.
Follis Run. Follesrunn.
Phallus?
No,
What?
Follis.
Oh.
It's only coming out in 375s.
Oh. Okay. Say a price? No. Oh, we're on
No,
labels.
it's just TTB labels.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Keep up, Eric.
Sorry.
And speaking of tequila cask finish, Sol Verde, Kentucky straight rye whiskey. Also apparently cask strength. And that's it. It says it's going to be 95 proof. I don't see how they're doing cask strength and 95 proof, but I guess we'll find out together. So, oh no. Old Forester's getting in on the mesquite filtered bourbon trend as well, with something called King Ranch.
Long Branch?
King Ranch.
Long Branch?
Long Branch.
Isn't that Long Branch?
Pretty much. 105 proof. A proprietary batch using heavily charred barrels filtered through King Ranch mesquite charcoal. Old Forester King Ranch Edition celebrates the union of two iconic American brands with over 300 years of combined history. Each is woven into the nation's fabric. Old Forester, the first bottled bourbon, and King Ranch, the birthplace of American ranching. Trademark. That was not a complete sentence, Old Forester. This expression is a homage to the values that bring them together, including hard work, ingenuity, and a lasting legacy. Oh no. He's back.
You have failed me for the last time, Old Forester. I don't know about that.
We'll see about it. We'll certainly see about it. I got a couple that I'm going to save until the end. Because one I'm confused by, one I'm really, really excited by.
I was going to say, is this good or bad?
Some, yes. Old Carter's got it looks like a new batch of American whiskey coming out. 124 proof. Mm-hmm. Barrel strength. Did you guys try this at Whiskey Weekend?
No.
It's a 13-year-old.
The only one we had was that single barrel bourbon.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'll let you try.
That you let me try. Could you just let you finish your sentence? But instead, I grew impatient. Anyway.
Yeah.
Two more. No. Growing up. No, stop it. Growing up the oldest of three. This is one of my pet peeves. Like when little brothers and sisters start doing that to you and you're like, just.
I can't see the screen.
Would you like to do this?
I can't see the screen. I'll stop.
We got two barrel whiskey private releases. One is finished in a Calvados cask, and the other is finished in a Malmsey Madeira barrel.
Momsey?
The Madeira is 126.52. Yeah, there we go. And the Calvados is 127.94. So this is just part of their private release series. We have some samples from previous years, but I would be very much interested in trying these. It looks like a new brand out of old Lawrenceburg, but being bottled by a company in Baltimore.
What?
It's another Baltimore's finest or whatever the heck it was last week.
Baltimore's finest
This
from
is
Kentucky.
a barrel-proof, unfiltered, straight rye whiskey. It's under the label of Sherbrooke. Sherbrooke. Sorry, Sherbrooke. There's no second R. This whiskey is 14. You know what's funny, because he doesn't listen anymore, so we just get the anyway. This whiskey is 14 years old. 95.5. What did I say? 108 proof. So there you go. Compose yourself. All right. Do you want to talk about the one that's confusing me first?
Yes.
All right. Good. Because I don't know what's happening here. I think I kind of do, but I also kind of don't. And I'm very... Yeah, let's just talk about it. So, Buffalo Trace has filed a new label for Old Rip Van Winkle 10-year.
I saw this.
And it's 90.4 proof.
Yeah, what's up with that?
So 90.4 proof apparently was the old proof that they bottled it at. And then I guess it was what it was at Stitzel Weller.
Yeah.
But then they bumped it up to 107. So what I'm seeing here is one of two things. Either they are changing the proof, and also the labels seem to indicate that they are going back to the squatty bottle.
I saw that. It was way different shape than...
Yeah, because it's got that same neck tag that went around. Because now, I think it's essentially the same shape as like what Heaven Hill is using with the old Fitz Prime bottles. Mm-hmm. But it's got that same neck tag that the old squatty bottles used to have. So either they're doing away with the old Rip Van Winkle 10-year as it is now at 107 proof and replacing it with this kind of return to form 90.4 proof, or they're going to have two 10-year-old old Rip Van Winkle products, and they're going to spread their stock even thinner than it already is. I would be more willing to bet that they are just returning to the 90.4 proof. And the reason is because they are seeing, of course, the demand for it. 90.4 proof means more water added to it. So in that way, they're going to have more bottles to sell. That seems more like the move that Sazerac would make than trying to put two bottles of the same product out. And the only difference would be bottle shape and proof.
Unless they were trying to do something that came out like every month or something.
That would be insane to do that.
But wouldn't it be...
I mean, it would be cool. It'd be really cool. But I don't know. How do you feel about this? Do you think that they're actually going to be getting rid of the 107 proof, or?
I don't feel like it. I feel like this is something new. In my head, I want it to be something like, oh, we're going to put out something that's available. Well, it probably won't be available, but it's going to be out there maybe a couple of times a year instead of just that one time a year with Pappy releases. That's what I would like to see, just because it's so different. But at the same time, it could very well just be them changing it. I don't know. I would like to see something that I could hunt for a couple of times a year, just because it's wheated bourbon. I like wheated bourbon.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know how their stuff works. Sometimes they're just out to piss the world off, I think. Or the bourbon world.
I don't know. I'm...
Probably some kind of secret empire plan or something. Yes. The dark side.
Got to make sure the plans are safe.
The dark side.
You won't get away this time.
Yes.
Buffalo.
Trace.
All right, two products that I'm really excited about.
Yay!
One more so than the other, just because I've been waiting for this for a really long time, and the first one just sounds really good. This is a Bardstown Bourbon Company, West Virginia Great Barrel Company, blended rye whiskey finished in infrared toasted cherry oak barrels.
Laser beams. Freaking laser beams on this shit.
Pew, 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 pew. 110 proof. The Bardstown Bourbon Company's collaborative series is a celebration of kindred spirits, yada, yada, yada. Savor the latest addition to this innovative series with our most unique release yet. Working with the West Virginia Great Barrel Company, the nation's most advanced cooperage, we fill cherry and oak hybrid barrels charred with using state-of-the-art infrared technology. With 6-year-old Indiana rye for 10 weeks, we then blend 12-year-old Canadian whiskey for a flavor that is unlike anything you've tasted in this series. Enjoy.
I'll be the judge of that.
We'll find out together. But here's the thing, though.
Oh, I know what you're getting ready to
You know what
read.
I'm about to say. And I shed a little tear when I read this for the first time. Bardstown Bourbon Company Origin Series Bottled and Bond Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 100 proof, 6 years old. Bardstown Bourbon Company Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
You know what makes me more excited?
Just their product.
You know what makes me more excited?
What?
It's a weeder, baby.
It's a weeder!
Give me that wheat.
I hope it's okay, though. I mean, like 6 years old, I think it's going to be pretty good. I'm imagining that it, towards like 10 years old, it's going to be even better. But
I don't think that I think that they have a good sense of what people like, and I don't think they would have put it out if they weren't ready for it.
Can we talk? I want to talk about this for a second.
Talk to me.
And it's been kind of running through my brain for a couple of weeks ever since I heard him say this. But Fred Minnick was doing a live stream, and he got asked by somebody what releases. It was like, are you excited for this specific release? And it generally turned into a conversation about what releases are you excited for, typically. And his response was, I don't get excited about releases anymore. I really just get excited about things like seeing my family. And in some ways, I totally get that. But I think that you lose the steam and the excitement and the drive for why we do anything remotely related to this if you look at every single product and just go, all right. I mean, am I wrong?
No, that's like he said. I don't get excited about just releases. Is that what he said? I don't know. That's kind of
like new products.
That's kind of like being a fan of movies and being like, there's a new Star Wars coming out, and it being like me being like a long life Star Wars fan being like, well, I don't really get excited about new Star Wars stuff. I get excited about like my family. Like what? Like it's okay to be excited about something. That doesn't mean you're more excited about it than your family.
Yeah, I think that's where it kind of came off weird.
That's exactly what it sounds like. It's like it sounds like he's saying like I can only be excited and put like all this love into like my personal like family stuff, which is perfectly fine because that's what me and you both do too. But it's still okay to be excited about something else.
Yeah, and I think too that we are probably colored by the fact that what we do is not necessarily 100% our job.
Yeah, true.
Right? I mean, this isn't where all of our income comes from. This isn't the thing that we kind of have to wake up in the morning and do to ensure that our family can survive. Mm-hmm. So if that's where he's coming from, I totally get that. And I'm not trying to knock on him for saying that his family is more important than his work, because that absolutely should be where you're coming from.
Right,
but
exactly.
Like, I think that we as almost ambassadors for the bourbon industry, and that has given us a lot of weight for what we do, but I do think that it's not terribly far off from kind of the role that we tend to play. But I think that if we say things like, I don't get excited anymore, I don't find excitement in new releases, then why would anybody else?
Well,
yeah, exactly.
If I heard you or somebody I listen to say that, then I'll be like, they obviously are just doing this because they feel like they have to.
Exactly.
And I am into bourbon because I'm having fun.
Yeah.
And
I love Fred. I've said this a bajillion times. I respect the heck out of the guy. It's just like I I just don't agree with them
Well,
on that. Like you're allowed to compartmentalize.
We have
excited
hobbies and we have stuff that's fun. That's not necessarily our family 24/7.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're not putting all our focus on our family, but it's okay to say, yeah, I can't wait to do this, especially when somebody asks you that. Like, it's like, what are you excited for? I don't get excited about this stuff. I was like, okay, well, I don't really want to listen to you anymore then. So,
all that being said, I'm really excited for this product.
Oh, I'm excited too.
And like, that's I think where my brain kind of went, where I was like, but how could you, as a bourbon fan, a bourbon drinker,
right, as a fan,
see this as something that we've been waiting a long time for, and not go, and sure, we just had our issues with Castle and Key's first 2 batches of bourbon, but there was still an excitement for me because it was bourbon coming from Castle and Key. But there are times where, we could be let down, but I think that, Bardstown has done enough legwork to prove that what they are making and what they are doing goes a long way to be respected and a long way to be excited for. So I think in this case, it's okay to get excited about it, but
get excited.
I don't know.
It's okay.
And I am excited, man. I can't wait for this. I'm going to do everything I can to get as many.
We need to see if they're doing like an event,
for
kick
sure,
it off.
For sure. And again, we're good friends with their PR people. All right, I am so excited to be welcoming Heather Wibbels to the podcast, also known as the Cocktail Contessa. Heather has a brand new book out. It's called Bourbon is My Comfort Food. It is really, really cool and really good. It is the most in-depth guide, I feel like, to making bourbon cocktails that I have seen so far. But Heather, thank you so much for being with me. Course.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I love talking cocktails and bourbon, so this is like the perfect marriage of my favorite things all together at once.
That's exactly what we're here to do, and I want to talk about specifically the recipe that you have for your perfect old fashioned, because I am, if nothing else, definitely an old fashioned drinker. I love expanding, but stepping out a little bit more towards like your Keeneland breezes when it's a little bit warmer, or something like a Manhattan if I'm just feeling like even like a little bit classier. But even then, it's just kind of like it's cocktail. Like we're trying we're trying to dispel some of the myth around the classiness and the highfalutenness of it all. But so this is in your book. I believe it's page 85 or no 62. Wow, way off. Okay, that's fine. For anybody who wants to follow along.
I'm going to get mine out too, so I'm looking at the right one.
You called it the perfect old fashioned. It says this variation is my absolute favorite. I use light brown sugar, simple syrup, 100 proof bourbon, and a combination of aromatic and orange bitters. And right off the bat, my first inclination was she does simple syrup the way that I prefer to do it, and that's with brown sugar. That to me is the only way to make simple syrup anymore. Excuse me, just because it's that little bit extra oomph behind it, and I don't go like super crazy with old fashions with like muddling fruit or anything. I just really like to keep it, the 3 main ingredients: bourbon, simple syrup, and bitters. Because I think after that, it just kind of like it messes with the integrity of the cocktail.
It can absolutely. And one of the reasons I don't always, in all of the cocktails in this book, I don't always say exactly which expression of bourbon that I prefer. But for this one, because it is literally my perfect old fashioned, I do prefer Old Forester 100. For one thing, it's widely available. It drives me crazy when people make cocktails and it's some rare expression I'll never be able to get my hands on, and they can describe it eloquently, but I'll never be able to experience. So, for me, having a cocktail like this, you can pretty much get anywhere you want in the U.S. And that the brown sugar simple syrup is really something that I think ties into both the aromatics of the bitters, right? Because it has a little bit of that molasses in it, a little bit of spice in it. But the brown sugar also ties into the flavors of the bourbon. So it ties into that caramel note that you get from Old Forester, which ties into that. I get a lot of raisin and dried fruit from Old Forester 100. Some banana.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But those three tie together, and it's like a perfect marriage of like a rum raisin, something where you get all of these little notes that come up as you're drinking it.
Yeah.
And as it dilutes more and more over the ice, you get a little bit more fruitiness, and some of the bitters recede. And so it's more of an evolving drink, I think, when you make it with a brown sugar simple syrup.
For sure.
I love brown sugar simple syrup in my old fashions. Some people would consider that a travesty, but my whole mantra is your palate is your own. So drink it how you like it.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't imagine, because it's the only thing that you've changed from what I guess a standard old fashioned would be is you're not using white sugar, you're using brown sugar. I mean, like, it's just, does it really change the whole composition of the drink so much that people should, get up in arms about it? Because I feel like not, personally.
Well, no, but some people really, they're in love with the muddled old fashioned where you put the sugar cube in, you muddle it to make the simple syrup right there, all a minute at the time. And I don't like crunchies in my cocktail. I'll be completely honest. I don't like old fashions for I get to the end of it and I'm sipping on chunks of sugar. It's not my thing. I'm fine if the last sip tastes different than the first. That's fine. I expect that because of dilution, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want the texture to be wildly different between the two. So that's kind of where I fall on that, and
I get it.
I really love doing cocktails with whiskey people, and I'll tell you why. Whiskey people know what they like, first of all, and they also know the notes that they like in a particular bourbon, right?
Yeah.
So it's like what's your favorite daily drinker of the past couple weeks?
Right now, and I actually made my old fashioned with it, but Knob Creek single barrel.
Yeah. So what are the big notes that you get in that when you make it?
I really look at that. I mean, aside from it being just like a standard bourbon profile with, heavy caramel, vanilla, and oak notes, the like Jim Beam nuttiness of it all, it really is just something else that I think kind of allows it to function not just as a neat sipper, but in cocktails as well. And like as far as like this one goes, I also lean into like I like a more citrusy old fashioned. So playing with those darker notes as well as the brighter expressive notes of, the orange zest. I was like, I'm okay with this. I can, I like where this is going and everything. But I'm a big Knob Creek single barrel fan.
Yeah. See, when I talk to a whiskey drinker and they can tell me all the notes in that whiskey, then I know that if you took that and you added some nut bitters, like I have some coffee pecan bitters, they would be fabulous with that. So you could they're really good. They're dangerously good, in fact. Or black walnut bitters would be nice in there with the orange. I did a whole class last week on exploring bitters in old fashions, and we did 4 different sets of bitters in the old fashioned, and then we added 4 more to those. So we had the taste experience of tasting 8 different old fashions, and they were all half old fashions, because we wanted people to be able to get home from the event.
Well, sure. Of course.
But when you walk people through experiencing what one element change does to an old fashioned like the bitters, it is so much fun to watch them experience it and then figure out, well, I don't like that. And I say, that's okay. Not everybody's going to like it. Try this one. Oh my God, that's the best one yet. So like whiskey, I think cocktails are a journey and an exploration, and you develop your palate as you go along.
Yeah. I now feel the need to go out and get, nuttier bitters now, because that just, I mean, again, it's right up my alley. So I'd definitely be interested in that. I have to ask you though, is there a point where it becomes like, at what point, I guess, does it become too many bitters? Like, are you, pretty freewheeling with it, or do you find that there is a better, more curated balance that just kind of comes with experimentation?
I would say there's absolutely a balance, but I will also say that balance is different person to person.
Sure.
really love Black Manhattans, Amari, things with a good depth to them, which I think bitters and Amari can bring. But if I'm making them for my family, like my husband or my mom, they don't really love all that bitterness. And so for them, I dial back on the bitters. But there is a point at which there simply are too many bitters. However, I will say, having said that, there are people who make entire cocktails with like Angostura bitters, like not as bitters, but as the base spirit.
That's insane to me. That's so crazy.
So I will tell you this. We had a Bourbon Women sort of YouTube presentation on bitters, and I was filming it at home. And I thought, well, I'll try Angostura bitters on their own. So I popped the dasher top off and put it in a little shot glass. And I was like, okay, everybody, I'm going to take a sip of this and we're going to see what it tastes like. And I'm like, oh, it's a little bit bitter. I'm going to be right back.
I've made a huge mistake.
I made a terrible mistake, you all. And I really had to turn off the camera and kind of come back about 15 or 20 minutes later once my throat had recovered. But it was hilarious because you don't really think about consuming bitters that way. Most people don't know really how to consume bitters or how to test their cocktail ingredients. And, I just consider myself a cocktail educator. If I can get people interested in playing around with cocktail ingredients or playing around with different whiskeys and something, I think I've succeeded.
So what is then the best way to experiment with your cocktail ingredients? Because I do, I think that it is, I mean, especially based on your experience, nobody wants to drink bitters straight. I mean, it's just not. It's not anything that anybody wakes up and says, I'm going to choose this lifestyle today. But I mean, is it micro batching? Is it just trying to, go through experimentation with everything, trial and error? Or, is there something that's more specific to, working through those ingredients?
I will say that for whiskey cocktails, because there are some very common templates, the old fashioned, the Manhattan, the highball, you have these templates that you can play with. Yeah. And some people really want the whiskey to be overpowering. They want it to taste like they're drinking whiskey neat. Yeah. A cocktail is never going to taste exactly like drinking whiskey neat, but they want that like visceral experience. Mm-hmm. For people like that, you have to stay away from highly bitter and highly sweet and highly sour elements that can overpower the whiskey. Right. There are some people who really like the balance between a nicely, maybe I call it mid-proof, like 95 to 105 proof bourbon that they like in their cocktails. It's good. Yeah. They can taste it really well, but it balances. So I think it is to everyone's preference. But what I usually do is if I get flavors that I know will go well together, I sit and play with the ratios. And so I may make 3 or 4 different half cocktails and taste them all. Or what I really love to do, which is fascinating and which I think every time I do it with whiskey drinkers, they're like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever, is I create the exact same cocktail with a different whiskey base and make like 4 or 5 of them. And it is invariable that no one version will win if I have more than 3 people. Like I will like one, somebody else will like another one, but you can taste different notes in each one. And the only thing that's changed is the bourbon in it or the rye whiskey. Yeah. And or adding a split base where it's half bourbon, half rye, or half bourbon, half mezcal, It's crazy.
I have never done a split base before. And honestly, like yeah, exactly. Like that is a very fresh term to me as well. But I love the idea of that. I mean, like, you can go easy and take something like High West Boo Rye and it's just kind of already made for you. But at the same time, I think taking you, and of course my brain initially goes to like Turkey 101 bourbon and Turkey 101 rye and throwing those together.
Yes. Yes. I'm totally. So you have to do this. Okay. You have to do this.
I'm so down for it. I'm so down for it. Okay.
So make it with 101 rye, make it with 101 bourbon and make it with half 101. And I would make actually an old fashioned because I think Wild Turkey 101 has a little bit too much punch for a Manhattan unless you really soften it with an Amaro, but I think it really works. This could really work well with an old fashioned or with a whiskey sour. Now, a whiskey sour would be fun because you could get the citrus notes from the lemon, and you could even split base the citrus with lemon and orange, not to blow your mind, but you could do that. I mean, this is what's going through my head like 24/7. Like I'm sitting there watching TV and I'm like, oh, like God forbid I watch Justified where they have bottles of whiskey in every scene. And I'm like, oh, look, they have the Wild Turkey bottle. I missed that Wild Turkey bottle. Oh, I haven't used Wild Turkey Russell's Reserve with that kind of cocktail. Well, maybe I could put pineapple in there. I could acid adjust the pineapple. And it's just like, it's like this running dialogue in my head.
I love that. That reminds me, I guess it was like midway through the pandemic when people were talking about how some of us don't have inner monologues, but then, I don't remember if it was like 50-50 or what, but like just thinking about the fact, because I'm the same way, like my brain is just constantly running and thinking about like anybody who doesn't just have that internalized, just blows my mind. I don't know how they function. Like, how
does that work if you can turn it off?
I don't know. There's times when I can't go to sleep because I can't turn it off. Like, it's just I always thought that was a human experience, but apparently I'm totally wrong about that.
Well, it is a largely human experience because I know you and I are not the only ones that do that.
Oh, no, but absolutely not.
I would love to hear about your experience doing that with an old fashioned or a whiskey sour because whiskey drinkers love to drink in flights because of the comparison factor, right?
Yeah, so absolutely.
You're comparing, even if you just did completely unrelated bourbons and ryes, like Woodford Rye and, I don't know, not Old Forester because it's like, you could do Wild Turkey bourbon and Woodford Rye and then mix them together and see what happens.
Heck yeah. Yeah. I remember. Go ahead.
Sorry, Woodford double oaked with the rye because those are two, because that smoke kind of punchy flavor in the double oak with the that might work. I'm looking over here to see if you
are definitely, as soon as we are done with this call, you are going to be doing like 3 whiskey cocktails just to see if you were on the right track. I know that's where your brain is going. Like, I'm ready to get in and experiment with this.
Yeah. And, but see with whiskey drinkers, because they're so used to comparing things in flights, to make a cocktail flight for a whiskey drinker, it's like an eye-opening experience because they can see that one thing, the whiskey sour with one little tweak can be 3 different complete expressions of a cocktail. Are
you not to jump too far back, but are you really specific when it comes to the amount of bitters that you add to cocktails? I mean, because you see recipes that are like a few dashes of Angostura bitters or a few dashes or like, some blood orange bitters or whatever. Like, but are you trying to encourage people to be very specific with what it is that they're doing as far as crafting their cocktail goes?
Well, I am, because if you want to create a cocktail more than once, you have to know what you did the first time.
Sure.
So unfortunately, a lot of times people are making cocktails at home, and after a cocktail or two, they forget to write down exactly what they put into the cocktail, which means they may make the most fabulous cocktail of their entire life and they will never be able to recreate it. But they will always remember that one cocktail they've never been able to recreate. But with the book, I usually put exactly how many bitters that I expect people to take for what it worked for me, for the ratios that I did that I think most people would like. But I will say that, when you first open up a bitters bottle, the bitter dashes aren't as big as when you've got like maybe a half inch or an inch out of the top of it. Right. So when you first open it, the dashes are measly, right?
Yeah.
But if you have something that's, if it's one of the 4 or 5 ounce bottles and you've got maybe between a full bottle and maybe like a half ounce left in the bottom, you're good. And then at the beginning and the end, it's hit or miss how many you're actually going to get into the glass. And then I had somebody the other day ask me, he said, can I ask a stupid question? I said, first, there are no stupid questions when it comes to cocktail. He's like, when I dash bitters, I get them all over the place. How do I do bitters dashes and not get them all over my counter?
That's a great question.
I know. And I said, That is an excellent question. It is absolutely not a simple question. Here's what I do, but I still sometimes get dashes everywhere. So I just showed them, I hold it from the bottom, I turn it completely 180 over and I dash down once and do it back. I don't do the little pouring motion where you kind of pour it out of the top.
Oh,
when you do that, do you know what I mean? Because if
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
if you kind of just tip it over,
because that's what I did earlier.
Everywhere.
That's what I did earlier, and not that it got not that I was having to clean the entire kitchen because of it, but like as I was doing it, I was like, there's got to be a better way to just be more deliberate about it. So that's perfect. That's exactly what I think people are looking for. Man,
it's things like that, and like Susan Winkler was one of the first readers of the book, and she said, I had no idea that a dash was equal to 8 to 10 drops. I'm like, I figured that out. I looked it up online. I tried to figure out exactly what a drop was so that I could convert. I was working on converting a recipe to a batch, and I needed to figure out exactly how much I needed in terms of grams or ounces or whatever I was working with for this cocktail. It was going to be for about 30 or 40 people.
Sorry, I thought you had more to say. That's why I took a sip of my drink.
No, I'm glad you're enjoying it.
No, I am. It's just, I was like, oh, she's got a little, anyway. I let's, now that we're on the topic of Susan Reckler, we now have to talk about Bourbon Women, because I first and foremost, Peggy and Susan are two of my favorite people in the entire world. And I'm so fortunate to have gotten to know them and be close with Peggy in some regard as well. And just, it's such a cool community too. And I think that it's, despite the fact that it is called Bourbon Women, it just feels so inclusive, right? And the reach is not just to encourage women to drink bourbon. It's just establishing the fact that the community at large is in fact a bunch of different people. And I just, what is your, and it sounds like you're in mostly agreement with me as well, but specifically, what has your experience been with Bourbon Women and those wonderful people in it?
Well, I'm actually managing director of Bourbon Women now. So
are you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was on the board for about 3 years. Last year, I was chair of the board, and then this year, I'm doing managing director work. So as our organization has grown over the years, I mean, we started in 2011. We had our 10-year anniversary last year. Yeah. We have hundreds of members. We are now across the country. So we have 14 chapters in different. I think most of the chapters are in different states. So I think we're in 13 or 14 states. So we have this really broad array. And I think when it started, we really thought it would mostly be a Kentucky organization, right? So when we started, we're like, well, women are drinking bourbon here. We need to celebrate that. And it's never been about being a drinking club. It's always been about bourbon education and bourbon experience, and specifically bourbon hospitality, because I think that the whiskey community is always about hospitality and making people feel welcome. And I think at the time that Bourbon Women was started, women were being overlooked, and we wanted to bring women into the conversation, right? So, and now that to a large extent is much better, right? The people who are working for the brand, the people who are working in distributing, there are all levels of the industry which have much better, they are doing much better in hiring women and having women actually work in the organization than it was 10 years ago. Now, is there still room for progress? Absolutely.
Of course.
But I think that, for Bourbon Women, it was never really about just being a drinking club where we got together and we got to drink whiskey. It was always about learning about the people who make it, learning about how to blend it, learning about food pairings, learning about all the different things that go into what makes bourbon special. And Susan and Peggy specifically, both of them were responsible for this book.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
We had our 10-year anniversary. It was coming up, and they're like, we should have a book. Hey, Heather.
have about, No pressure. But this has to be the Bourbon Women cocktail book. So no pressure at all.
They're like, hey, you have about 50 to 100 cocktail recipes. And at that point, because the pandemic, I'd been really doing it for a while. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And they're like, hey, we think we need a book, and we think you should write a cocktail book. And I'm like, I didn't really ask a lot of questions, because when Peggy and Susan come and ask you to do something, you say yes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because even it's something that you've never done before, you're like, well, they'll answer questions.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out. They're going to mentor me. It'll be fine. Yeah. So yeah. So that's how the book really came about. And it was, once I started working on it, I thought, well, there are other books that are just bourbon recipes, but aren't any books that really encourage people who are in the whiskey community or people who are in the cocktail community to kind of think about them in a broader sense and really discover how their own palates work. And bourbon, I think bourbon can be a little bit different in cocktails than other spirits, because although the ways you can make it are relatively, like, there's not a large set of ways and set of ways you can make bourbon, but there are a large set of flavors that you can get out of it as a spirit.
Right, yeah.
And I think, having a cocktail book specifically that talks about that and celebrates that can hopefully bring a lot to the industry. I mean, I would love to see this book in every distillery's gift shop, because I think it can expand the world of who exactly can call themselves a whiskey drinker, right? Because right now you call yourself a whiskey drinker, people think you're drinking whiskey neat. And I don't think it needs to be that way. I think if you like bourbon cocktails, call yourself a whiskey drinker, call yourself a bourbon drinker.
Well, in the kind of media package that I got sent over before we sat down to do this, one of them was, or one of the items within it was your 5 myths of bourbon. Which and that was one of them, that you have to be a neat bourbon drinker to call yourself a bourbon drinker. And it's one of those things where, like, I think that it is so ingrained in us that until we take the time to, like, step back and think about it, then we realize that is inherently a fallacy, and that you have to just allow yourself to kind of retrain your brain to think that's not true. That's just not true. Like, you can and it's the quote that I think everybody comes back to now ever since Neat came out. But Freddie Johnson saying, drink your bourbon just the way you like it. Like, that's and it's not to say that you're not drinking bourbon if you're doing it in a cocktail. It's just you're doing it differently than neat bourbon drinkers. And there's something to be celebrated in that as well. And I do think that it's, very much part of the diversity of what makes bourbon drinkers. And I want to talk about something as well. And this is slightly on the more serious side, but I do think that it begs to be talked about, especially as we're discussing things like still needing to view more progress in the bourbon industry. And a couple weeks ago, of course, is when the news dropped about Ebony Major and her lawsuit with Diageo over the way that she was treated at Bullet. And I feel like no matter how many steps forward we take, it's like every now and then there just gets like a few steps that knock us backwards. I mean, like, I know, I think initially what the response from Bourbon Women as a whole was, but where did you guys kind of find yourself within that narrative? And have you looked at ways to, kind of assist her along this journey too?
There's always a need for progress, right? And there are always going to be steps that take us back from where we want to be. Yeah. But I think it's really important as a community to look at ways we can do better in the future. And so one of the things that, we really want to do and we really want to see is just from here forward, where do we go from here? What are the kind of changes that we can make in the industry? And so some of the things that this is a heavy topic, right? So
it is. And I apologize for kind of like hard left turn into it. But I do think that it is unavoidable in some capacity because it's very current and it is something that does, lend itself towards what we've been talking about already.
Yeah. And I think that, what any organization has to do, whether it's Bourbon Women, whether it's, any kind of whiskey community organization, they really have to look at where we need to go moving forward. Like, what can we do moving from here forward? You can't always change what happened in the past, but what you can do is change and bring awareness to the way things are right now. And I think, issues like this really bring awareness to the fact that we're not where we want to be. And we do need to make progress. And, just getting more eyes on the subject, just raising awareness, I think that does a lot to not necessarily solve the problem, but start the conversation that can then solve the problem.
That I think is the biggest hurdle to overcome, is that, it does make people uncomfortable to have these conversations. And it's important, especially in this regard, to be uncomfortable and to ask questions, not only of those around you, but also yourself, and saying, why do I feel uncomfortable about this situation? And what is it that, has been ingrained in me one way or another, to where I need to, internalize some of these things that are very external. I mean, it's
they're external to you. But they may not be external to other people, right? So,
absolutely.
So part of it is just learning how to listen to what you say yourself, I think. And also learning how to interpret where someone is on their journey and how to step forward with them. Because a lot of times I think, and I am no expert in this, but from the work that I've done and from kind of what we're starting to do with the Bourbon Women Education Foundation, we're trying to look at ways to really take the conversation in two ways: to internalize a little bit about where we need to be able to, examine where we are and, where the organization is and where the industry is, but also try and build a path forward that is something that is, I don't want to say easy to communicate, but something that is approachable to people as steps that they can make in a journey with you. Because I think in some cases, if we can be forthright in our intentions, but be gentle in our approach, I think sometimes that carries a little bit more weight in the whiskey community.
Yeah.
But I also, there are times when it's time to shout and time to sing and time to make a big deal. But I think for us as an organization, Bourbon Women, we are about the community. We are about, inclusion. But every community has its challenges, right?
Of course.
Whiskey community, Bourbon Women, there are all things that we need to kind of work into, things that we need to improve, things that we have to deal with. And I know I keep saying the same thing, but for us and for me personally, it really is how to start that conversation in a way that's approachable, and how to start that conversation in a way that steps can be made forward and progress can be made.
Do you feel like the bourbon community at large is struggling with ways to actually engage in this conversation? Or do you think that particular subset of the culture, sub-denomination of the culture is leaning more towards being willing to have those conversations?
I don't think I can speak to that, because I can talk about what I see and what I hear. And there are a lot of people that want the change, that want to see change. But it's an evolving process. And this is a really heavy conversation to have when we're supposed to be talking about cocktails.
I'm really sorry. That's sorry.
Okay. It just came out, didn't it?
Before we started, and I do this before every interview, I say I don't plan a lot of questions. I just want to make sure that things are conversational. And
absolutely.
But I do think that within the range of topics that we are touching on, it's something that should be at least discussed a little bit. And we have the limited viewpoint of, between myself and my co-host being two cis white males. Like that's just the fact of the matter. And so in some regards, there are blind spots, and it is important. I try to make the effort to ask the questions and have the conversations to the best of my ability. And, as much as I feel
Absolutely.
like I grew empathetic more empathetic during the pandemic, I just still, if like, I know that it's not the end of a journey. It's just, it's just part of it. So that's where this was coming from. I am more than happy to swerve back over to cocktails, though, because we haven't even touched on the fact that this book is, out and about for people to check out. And I think I said this up top, but it is very, very comprehensive in terms of what you kind of need to know to get started with cocktails and where to even take that journey and that experience, even once you finish the last page of the book. And I don't feel like I've seen that in as many cocktail books, because I think that they are so much more geared towards, here are recipes and here are ways to experience it, and here's a little bit of background, but you actually like take the time to be very deliberate with your reader and say, it's simple syrup is not that hard to make. Like you can start on a very base level and move up from there. But even I remember seeing even like a recipe for lavender simple syrup, which is insanely easy to make. But, people might hear, even just one more ingredient and go, I'm not so sure about that. So was that something that you kind of focused on from your outset, or was that just a natural evolution for you along the way?
No, I always knew that I wanted to talk about how to make some of those ingredients that go into bourbon cocktails, because they are simple. I mean, lavender simple syrup is basically lavender tea that you add sugar to. I mean, none of this is really rocket science. It could be rocket science if you were a mixologist who worked at a bar and were working with very, huge service numbers and lots of pours every night. But, and lots of tickets. But for me, working at home and trying to educate people on the basics, really, I wanted to get them more comfortable with creating some of their own ingredients, for lack of a better term, how to make a fruit infused simple syrup. And, I gave a copy of the book. Andrea Wilson from Michter's read it. She's like, now I understand how to make a fruit infused simple syrup. Oh my God. Because no one, you don't really have people sitting down to explain it. And it sounds intimidating when you start. And it's really not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's that allowing people to see that the barrier for entry is so much lower than what they're anticipating. But it's, I think that it's something too that, I mean, yes, we were all stuck at home for a long time and we decided we wanted to drink more and drink more often throughout the pandemic. But what about that, just the freedom to, I say freedom, but to like be at home and be more experimental with your with your cocktails? What kind of changed your viewpoint about that? Access to more time to kind of craft your own cocktails and be more deliberate in sitting down and saying, I want to try to do things like this.
Well, I think, when everything shut down, my other job, my day job kind of shut down too. And so I had a lot of time on my hands. So, I was like, oh, well, I'll start a blog and I'll take some pictures. How hard could it be? I'll do 5 a week. That won't be too much. Yeah. What was I thinking?
The undertaking of that is just, good on you.
Yeah. Obviously, it was a bit much to bite off, but what it did teach me was that there were a lot of not cheats, but easy hacks that you could use to make cocktail ingredients and make cocktails at home much easier than what you maybe thought off the top of your head,
Yeah, of course.
So for me, I really wanted this book to be like I was sitting across the table from you at home and we're just talking about cocktails. Yeah. I don't want to make it highfalutin or fancy. I want to give you the tools that you need to be able to make fun cocktails if you want, or put a fun garnish on it. But I don't want to make it so difficult sounding that you don't want to make it. It's not fun for me if people get this book and never make a cocktail out of it. I even like it when people make a cocktail and they're like, I didn't like the way that cocktail turned out, because then I can have the conversation of, well, why didn't you? Was it too sour? Was it too sweet? Was it too bitter? I mean, was it the base spirit? What did you use? And so I have people messaging me on emailing me or messaging me on Instagram asking for help with cocktails even before the book came out. They're like, I tried that cocktail you posted on Instagram and it was good, but mine did XYZ. And then we go through like what ingredients they used and what the flavor profiles were. And it's just having a conversation with somebody to kind of open their mind about the process of cocktails. It's not as easy as opening a bottle of bourbon and making a pour, but it's infinitely more complex and it's a puzzle. It's fun to play at.
Were you doing and as far as like background goes, were you doing say even like 50% of the research and experimentation before the pandemic that you were doing or during, excuse me?
Ask me that again. Was I doing 50% of the
like about 50% of the experimentation and doing your own kind of trial and error with cocktails before the pandemic started as opposed to when it actually got swinging?
Before the pandemic started, it was really more of a hobby and sort of a passion project.
Yeah.
But once the pandemic kind of came, swooped in, I needed that focus and I needed something to really keep me occupied. Because
of course,
it's been a slog the last 2 years getting through it. And, cocktails are fun. And the other thing about that is that everybody needed something fun to look forward to. And they wanted something fun that they could do at home. And when the bars closed, people still wanted to be able to have a good drink at home. But if they didn't know how, it was really challenging. So, putting together my cocktailcontessa.com blog and, putting recipes up every week so people have something to look forward so they could look up some bourbon cocktails if they wanted to. It's just part of the way that I want to give people an experience. And the way I give people a flavor experience is to share a recipe with them. But what they prefer is maybe different than what I prefer. And that's fine.
Yeah. And I imagine that there's some kind of like intrinsic sense of fulfillment too, like feeling like, when there's, even extrinsically when people are, coming and saying, hey, I did actually try this and I did really like it. And thank you for the guidance and everything. But I know how it is being, like an independent content creator, like having that positive response and people saying, I really like what you're doing and thank you for doing it. And I'm sure that you kind of felt that way as well, and I do think that it's important to talk about like, personal victories and feeling like, what you are doing is in some ways important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, you always want to think that you're making a difference. And when people are shooting pictures of my cocktails that they've recreated at home and sending them to me on social media or texting them to me, it's just plain fun. I mean, there's nothing like it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Now that the book's out, people are taking pictures of the book with the cocktail that they made, which is even more fun.
What's the one cocktail in the book that you feel like people need to make above all else? Or maybe
Lord.
The top 3, top 5?
Oh,
top
Lord.
10.
Okay. Well, maybe I should just flip through the cocktail. I really like, let me flip through the book. There's a chocolate lavender sour that I really like, which I think is a surprising combination. Most people wouldn't think of those two together. But when I was in San Francisco at one point, we did a wine tasting that had chocolate that was infused with lavender, and it was in this wine tasting. So I knew it, and the wine was kind of a sourish white wine. And so I knew that the two flavors would go well together. And so that's one that I think people would like. I absolutely love the chocolate Sazerac recipe, which is in there.
Oh yeah.
And it is so simple to do. And if you love Sazerac, it's a very easy tweak. And then, there's a coffee infused Boulevardier, which is really fun.
Yeah. It sounded so good.
Yeah, just a coffee infusion of Campari is so fast, and it adds so much flavor depth to a cocktail. I can't even describe it. It smells kind of chocolatey, but then it tastes really coffee. So you have that nice kind of tease in your head between what you smell and what it actually tastes like.
Of course.
Golly. Oh my God.
Asking the hard-hitting questions.
I know, my God. I didn't prepare enough for this interview. Man. There's one that's a black Manhattan in there. That's one of my favorite Manhattans too. dark quarter. It's like a combination between a Manhattan and a Sazerac. I love absinthe, by the way, so that's why I love talking about the Sazeracs.
I also love absinthe. I am a huge fan of. I don't have it very often, but my father-in-law is really big into, mixology just in general, and then also just being very authentic with things that require craft like that. And he loves to do the whole weighted scale with the sugar dripping into absinthe and making it like the actual experience. And like I that's the only way I want to drink it anymore, is because just because like I know how insanely good it is and how different it is from anything else that you could have. But like to take that to the next level and mix it with whiskey for a cocktail is pretty awesome. Even
better. I have a favorite absinthe drink that's an absinthe frappe, which is basically simple syrup, absinthe, and it's really simple. It's simple syrup, absinthe, and it's on. You usually serve it over nugget ice, I think, so it chills and dilutes really fast.
Right,
and it is this like explosion of licorice, and it's cold and it's frosty. And I had it at the old Absinthe House in New Orleans. We had gone there. I'd gone to the New Orleans Bourbon Festival a couple years ago, and I talked my mom into going with me, and she hadn't been there. So I got an absinthe, a traditional torched, how they torch set the sugar cube on fire.
Right. Yeah.
And then they drip the thing over it with the simple syrup and and then they pour it out with water. So I had that, and then she had the absinthe frappe, and I'm like, man, I should have ordered that. So I came home and I figured out how to make it, and it's really actually fun with a bunch of different simple syrups too. So you could use I had one I made with hibiscus simple syrup, which was really good.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and it was colorful. Like it had that bright hibiscus, like dark fuchsia color on the bottom.
Right. Yeah.
And then you'd stir it just a little bit, and you'd have kind of the light green louche creaminess on the top because it was chilled. It's so good.
That sounds so good.
You would love it.
I'm going to have to at least try that. And I will say too, so we are recording this episode about a week in advance of when it's actually going to be coming out. And I will definitely be trying that old fashioned, comparing doing the one with the 101 and then 101 rye. And then so is that supposed to be like a 50-50 blend? Technically?
It can be. Technically a split base is 50-50.
Okay.
But if you think about it, all it is you're blending your own whiskey base.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's really all it is.
Yeah.
So, if you're somebody who likes to take your particular whiskeys that you have and combine them together to make your own expression, that's right up your alley.
Yeah. For sure. Now I mean, like the more that we talk about it too, the more I'm like, I have to do this. And I mean, like we might even just do it on the podcast once Eric, my co-host, and I sit back down and we fill out the odds and ends of the episode around the interview portion of it. But Heather, I just want to say thank you so much for sitting down with me for the past hour and talking about. Man, we hit a wide range of topics.
We did.
Sure.
We covered everything. And I didn't even get to talk about bourbon women that much. So, we talked about it a little bit, but I got to say, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let me offer this to you then. What is it about bourbon women that is so special to you? And the one thing, maybe not one thing, but the things that you are doing the most to convey to other people about that makes it special or makes it, worthwhile for the bourbon community?
I will say that there is nothing like being in a room full of women sipping whiskey together, because, I've been to a lot of events that I'm the only woman in the room. I've been to a lot of events where there's a combination of men and women, but still usually mostly men. And a room full of women sipping whiskey is quite frankly a magical experience.
I'm sure
there is something, and it's not because, I think what it is it's a space that can be ours, a space where we can ask questions, and a space where our voices are heard in a way that sometimes when you're in a group full of men and you're the only woman, I'm asking questions and everybody's looking at me because I'm the girl asking questions. And then I'm asking smart questions, and they're like, why is the girl asking the smart questions?
Sure.
And there's dudes saying, oh, I have the XYZ expression, or, it's less of a competition in a group full of women about what the most expensive thing you own or have tasted is. And it's more about what you can do with what you have. And the coolest thing you found just on the shelf, just as, I love to talk about the bargains that I've gotten. I found such and such at a store on a trip in the middle of Virginia, and it was, $45 instead of $75 like it is in Kentucky. Yeah. Or have you tried this and that? Well, it's like this other one, but it's just an eye-opening experience to be in a room full of women sipping whiskey. And what's especially fun is when the presenter or presenters are men, and they don't expect a room full of women, first of all, or the kinds of questions they get from the room full of women when like 15, 20% of them are scientists and they're asking the hard questions, right?
Ooh, right. Yeah.
And so I think, and I really love when I see the presenters kind of, the male presenters kind of get up there and they're like, whoa, what's happening here? This is kind of cool. I didn't expect this, but this is really kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that Bourbon Women does for women is not only raise the awareness of women as a group in the whiskey community, but also raise the awareness to the people who are making whiskey that we are drinking it, and we do expect, to learn about it and to hear about it. And we don't want just, the fun stories. We're going to want the details, right? Because
of course,
a lot of the people in the group, probably 15 to 20% of the people in Bourbon Women are in the industry, right? It's largely a consumer group, but even the ones that aren't in the industry, they're whiskey geeks, man. They will geek out over everything.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that's really why I love it. It's just a community where it's fine to ask the fun questions and the hard questions. And it's fun to see a room full of women get excited about bourbon, because the next thing you're going to do is share it with all of their friends who are on the bourbon journey with them.
And it's super important too to take that extra time and be deliberate as well. Yeah. And it's just important to be inclusive in that as well. Mm-hmm. Right? It's just, and one of the things I love the most about Bourbon Women. So we haven't done, we did a live show back in 2019 with Peggy, Sarah from It's Bourbon Night, and Andrea Wilson.
I was there.
Oh my gosh, you were.
Yeah, you taped that in Louisville, right? You're upstairs at the Silver Dollar
Club.
Yeah. Okay, so funny story. That was after my best friend and I were planning a bourbon and cheese tasting. And so we had spent about 3 hours tasting bourbons and cheeses. So my husband had to drive us to the thing because we'd gotten so overwhelmed with all the bourbon and the cheese.
I remember you coming into the event now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I forgot that that's what you guys, so we have history.
Wow. I remember. Didn't we talk about it like after the fact too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Heather. Holy crap.
Because she and I, because we took our notes because we were going to ask Peggy because we knew Peggy was going to be there. So we're like, Peggy, we were doing, because that was when she started doing all of her food pairing stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, Peggy, this is what we came up with, but we need to check with you. So we had all of our notes written out. So we were going up to Peggy afterwards saying, okay, are we right? Did we get this right? And of course, Peggy's like, well, did it work together? And we're like, well, yeah, it all works, but yeah.
Then you were
so
right.
It was fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's so crazy.
That's funny.
All right. Well, the world I was about to say the world gets smaller and smaller every day, but that's incredible. But I want to come back around eventually and do some kind of catch up with Bourbon Women and see, do a very devoted, dedicated episode to talking about Bourbon Women with y'all. But in the meantime, again, thank you so much, Heather, for sitting down with me. We already kind of talked about it, touched on it a little bit, but where can people find you, not just on social media, but the name of your blog and the website and everything?
Sure.
And where can they find the book as well?
So the book is available on Amazon.com. It actually got to the warehouses early and has been available for purchase for the last month.
Oh, snap.
I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't have all my social media planned for this yet. but hey, here it is. But so it's on Amazon. It's available in Louisville at Carmichael's. It's available at Joseph Beth in Lexington. Any independent bookseller can order it for you at this point. But my website is cocktailcontessa.com. And online, I'm on Facebook, it's Cocktail Contessa. On Instagram, I'm cocktail_Contessa. So you got to put the underscore in there. It's somebody else's channel.
An important distinction.
It is, but you'll see it doesn't look like my pictures at all. So, like you've seen the cover of the book. If it doesn't look like that, it's not my channel. Yeah. And I'm on LinkedIn, and, people can just search for me on LinkedIn under Heather Wibbels. So yeah, I'm pretty much all over the place. Yeah.
Awesome. Heather, again, thank you so much. It's been so much
fun.
It's
been such a pleasure to talk today. I just wish I wish we had set up, a flight of cocktails. Now I'm really thinking I need to come back on, and we need to either do like a bitters experiment.
Let's do it.
Yeah, because I think you guys would absolutely eat that up. I think you would love doing that.
And the other thing too is, I thrive on being able to sit down in person with somebody and do interviews and everything. So the next time, which I'm imagining will be within the next few months, based on how excited
it's going to happen.
For it.
Yeah, it's going to
happen. But in the meantime,
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Heather.
All right, thank you so much.
Eric, what kind of tips and bits do we have for our listeners this week? You go first. I don't want to go first. You go first.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I got real aggressive. My coffee's finally kicking in.
Man, okay. Yeah, okay. I will go first, sir. Sorry.
Sir, do not call me sir.
Mission accepted. Well, I mean, I have a bunch of stuff that I've been watching, but I got to stick to Star Wars. So it's.
I'm gonna go a little bit outside of Star Wars just because I've got something I have to talk about.
I'll do the Star Wars. The stuff I've got I'm going to save it for next episode. Okay, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You have to watch the Star Wars animated series, Clone Wars and Rebels. It is some of the best Star Wars content out there. And it's all directly related to what we're seeing in The Mandalorian and all these new Disney Plus series. And it's going to tie into Obi-Wan coming out. So please, if you love Star Wars, take the time to watch these animated series. There are a lot of episodes, but there's plenty of lists online that you can put Star Wars, Clone Wars filler list, and it will show you all the episodes that are just like side quests and stuff that doesn't lead exactly to the main story, and you can skip a lot of stuff. I don't recommend skipping too much because they're great stories anyway.
And there's so much of it that ties into the other shows and movies and everything. Like it's not always directly linked to it, but there are parts of it that kind of fill in gaps here or there. I don't think it's a particularly big spoiler anymore because he has shown up in another movie, but you kind of find out why or the fact that Darth Maul actually survived.
Oh yeah, he's got a big story after, way bigger story than he had in episode 1.
Yeah, and they go a really long way to flesh out that character and to give him even more of a reason to have done what he did. And he actually becomes a pretty crucial character within the context of the Clone Wars TV show. And kind of jumping off the back of what you're saying, even if you have kind of a loose understanding of who the characters in the Clone Wars are, I think that it is still greatly important for you to go and watch the last 4 episodes of the final season of the Clone Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Because it spans basically the entirety of Revenge of the Sith. Little bit before and a little bit after as well. I'm not going to spoil anything with that because there are a couple of scenes that still give me chills, and I've seen those 4 episodes multiple times, but it's like the Star Wars movie that never got made.
Yeah.
That's the way that I've always viewed it. And it's so beautifully animated and incredibly acted. And I think that the Clone Wars also did so much work to make you care about characters like Obi-Wan and Anakin.
I think one of the biggest things from Clone Wars is the way it fleshes out Anakin, because you hear, like, if you just watch the movies, you hear all this stuff like he was a great fighter pilot, he was a great commander, and all this stuff in the Jedi and the Clone Wars and all this stuff. But you actually get to see that. You get to see the skills he has on the battlefield as a captain, as a commander, as somebody that's just not just this little boy who flew a plane and blew stuff up and all that.
And even getting into A New Hope, when Luke and Obi-Wan are talking about how he fought in the Clone Wars with Anakin, I mean, that there is so much... Go away! We're recording a podcast! It's very important work! No, but... somebody's out there honking. But it goes a long way to show the depth of emotion and the gravitas of the situation that Obi-Wan is feeling while he's trying to recount to Luke the experiences that he had, where he basically sliced his dad up and left him to die on a fire planet after having fought an entire war side by side with him.
And you see all those battles together, and you realize, hey, like, when he says you were like a brother to me, like, you see all that stuff in the Clone Wars. Yeah. And then Rebels goes on. It's right before A New Hope, after Order 66 and stuff like that. And you see this small group that is come together, and some more lightsaber Jedi things going on. Like, I don't even want to spoil anything.
Yeah. But it hits the ground running from like the first episode.
Yeah.
And I mean, it really feels like it just doesn't quit.
It's crazy.
You know? It's pretty intense.
And a lot of those classic characters show up in Rebels too. So
by the third episode, you've got classic characters showing up. Also, this is not really a spoiler, but as I was watching it, so I just started watching Rebels. As I was watching the first couple episodes, I was like, why does Zeb look so familiar?
Oh, yeah, you know why, right?
Yeah, because he was the original design for Chewbacca.
That's what Chewbacca was going to look like.
And there's even a reference to it in the second episode when he's being brought in as... This is not really a spoiler, I guess, but he's being brought in as a Wookiee.
Yeah.
And they're like, this isn't a Wookiee.
He's
the rare hairless Wookiee.
There's a lot of things in the animated series, either in Clone Wars and Rebels, that Dave Filoni went back and looked at old concept art.
Yeah.
And used that art as new characters and things, droids and different things like that.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see those things pop up. So do it. Get your cartoon on.
Watch you some Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think I've done enough bouncing off of you as well. Go look, it's goofy. The game is I'm struggling with whether or not I want to get all the way to 100% with it, but there's so much content in it. But the Lego Star Wars game that just came out, the Skywalker Saga, is so much fun. And so goofy and off the wall and everything. But it's still very true to what Star Wars is. And I mean, if you haven't seen it, you're kind of going to miss out on some stuff here and there. But overall, it's a really, really fun game. I'm going to shift the hard shift into something else. So we just got done watching 2 different series, pretty much back to back. They were both about con women in the 21st century. The first one was Inventing Anna on Netflix. Which was about the fake German heiress, Anna Sorokin, who is still alive. She committed most of her acts of being a confidence woman, I guess, over the past 10-ish years. And then we also just finished a show called The Dropout, which is based on the life of Elizabeth Holmes, who founded Theranos. Which was that company where they tried to create a product where anybody could, with just like a couple drops of blood, get tested for just this wide array of diseases and everything. Yeah. And it turned out that she didn't know what she was doing, but she was able to, con people out of billions and billions of dollars. And it was weird getting through the dropout after having just watched Inventing Anna, because while they are very much two sides of the same coin, they're also just like wildly different in representations of what a con person looks like, especially in the 21st century. And I not that I'm like constantly going, I'm going to con somebody, but I constantly think like, how is it like, it's got to be enormously difficult to con people into them giving you their money.
I feel like you have to like, it would only be easy if you like went to like some older person who doesn't get on the internet and doesn't understand how to do things.
But there were people who were like our age and younger who were willing to like fork over credit cards and tens of thousands of dollars for things like this. And it's just, they're both very, very fascinating stories. But I kind of like would encourage people to see and take the time to watch both of them, especially back to back, and see how these two different stories, while they are extremely similar, the storytelling aspect behind them is so crucially different.
Yeah.
And they are very, very different in the ways that you feel sympathetic or empathetic for the central figures and the way that their story kind of comes to light and everything. And they're not dissimilar by any means, but it just... I just can't believe that people are able to pull off that kind of crazy scheme in the 21st century.
That's crazy.
I mean, the paper trail is nearly impossible not to have.
Yeah.
To make
Google
things.
search away from something.
But anyway, also don't slip a disc in your back. It's caused me a great deal of pain over the past few days.
Don't pull a hammy.
All right, Eric. We're at that point of the show where I need you to do the outro.
Need? Why do you need me to do anything?
Because I'm holding a thermal detonator. No, I'm just kidding. Can you do the outro, buddy?
Diet Coke. Yes, I can do the outro. First off, once again, live show tickets are up. There's one all-in package left. And then you have the single live show tickets available at Eventbrite. You can find that in the description of the podcast and at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram. If you want to become a patron of the show and support us and help keep the show running and help us do cool stuff and listen to unedited stuff and extra shit and all that, become a Patreon at My Bourbon Podcast on Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and at $5 you get all that uncut stuff. If you want to send us an email with questions, comments, or samples you want to send or pairings you want us to do, this is mybourbonshop@gmail.com. We also got some merch over at bourbonshop.threadless.com or at whiskeymutant.shopify.com. If you want to leave us a message on the Barrel Ring segment, which is like a voicemail, you leave it, we'll play it, then we'll talk to you via voicemail. It's 859-428-8253. All social media, it's at My Bourbon Pod. You can do Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There's also a Facebook group you can join in, answer a few questions. We'll let you in, and then you can post memes, or you can see news or episode summaries and stuff that's coming out, or just send us a message on there and troll us, whatever you want to do. It's This Is My Bourbon Podcast Facebook group. Go over to YouTube at This Is My Bourbon Podcast. Perry goes live every Thursday at 8. You can check him out there. I try to join him whenever work will allow me.
Maybe this week.
Maybe. We'll see. I'm still waiting on the answer.
We're working on getting a bunch of people on the stream this week, and that's basically everybody who's going to be at the live show because, hey,
why not? Hey. If you want to leave a review or a rating, you can do that on whatever podcast app you use. And then just tell people about us. Write them a letter. Write your long distance friend a letter that says they should listen to this if they like bourbon or if they just like pop culture. You can just tell them about us.
Yes.
Word of mouth. Tell your friends. Tell your mom. Tell your dad.
Mom.
Hey, Mom, will you listen to this podcast for my friends?
Well, a couple of things real quick to wrap us up. But the first thing is that we have a new patron.
Who?
My Whiskey Lab.
Oh, yeah. I think I know who that is.
That subscribe. Really?
Yeah. The lab?
How do you know all of our patrons?
Dude, like, especially Whiskey Lab. Like, it's just like, I figured you would know about this. There's like the legit, like, he has a lab. He is like Dexter, but he's whiskey. He's like Whiskey Laboratory. And Whiskey Laboratory.
I think I heard about this, but I'm going to let you finish.
He takes whiskey and he puts it in beakers. And then he drinks it. And then he mixes it. And then he does tests on it. And he sends this information.
Wait. He drinks it and then he tests it?
Yeah, he has to drink it first.
So he pees it out and then they test it.
Something like that. Don't worry about it. There's this whole like thing that the distilleries use to like, it's like kind of like a product control thing that we don't know about, but I found out about because I found out about Whiskey Lab. And he sends this information to them and he just does that stuff. Like, and it's so awesome that he finally decided to become a patron.
Swan, come back, please.
What? Look, it's true.
You know what? I totally believe you, though.
If you go through their books, you will see the scores and the ratings and the information from Whiskey Lab.
Yeah.
It's true.
I believe you.
He lives in his mother's basement. It's a front, okay?
Oh, it's a front.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a bigger thing going on. There's a bigger thing going on, and he can't put it out there.
Okay. Well, we're going to let him bring it out to the public then.
Yeah.
Because I'm not here to dox anybody in there.
Follow him. Look him up, Whiskey Lab.
Yeah. But also, leave us a 5-star rated and review.
Yeah, do that
Please.
too.
Helps us out so much. Go find tickets for the event. Go find a hotel room to stay in so you can hang out with us all weekend long as well. At the end of May over Memorial Day weekend. I said that. That does it for this week. Guys, thank you so much as always for listening. May the force be with you. We'll see you guys real soon. But until then, I'm Perry.
I'm Eric.
And this is my Bourbon Podcast. All right, that's we got it.